Hello, welcome back. We're gonna just try to do this in one take because this week I don't really have enough time to edit. If you've watched any of my other videos, you know that I'm a very amateur editor anyway, so maybe this will work out better, and here we go. Welcome back, my name's Kara. This is a channel that I'm using to document a 1 year long low-buy project, and it's a really interesting year to be doing that, of course. But I am doing a low-buy to keep a tight budget because that helps me to pay as much of my income as possible onto my student loans. I'm very fortunate right now because I work at a grocery store, so I'm an essential worker and I still have an income. I know that that is not everyone's case, and I'm very grateful for my situation, and I've never considered this channel to be advice, but now moving forward, as other people's situations possibly deteriorate even more, and mine is staying relatively stable, it is very important to me to make sure that you know I don't consider myself to be giving advice. I am just documenting my experience. I'm telling my story. For the last two videos, I was reviewing a really wonderful resource that I had recently come across called the Choose FI Foundation, and that's Choose Financial Independence. And they had created a free online course, and I loved it. I took the class. I will always refer back to it, and I highly recommend it. And the address is in those previous two videos. And today I wanted to share a couple other resources that have been helpful to me over the years, and a little bit, I guess, of the story along the way, kind of how I came across them, what impact they had, and what I love about them. And I wanted to actually start with YouTubers. Yeah. Well, anyway, we're not editing, so some of the videos, or not videos, but channels that I've really enjoyed over mostly the last year or so. I really got into watching YouTube in the last year, and these were some of the more personal finance and getting out of debt and kind of take charge of your money, learn what you need to learn to take care of yourself kinds of channels. So I really like Budget Girl, and I find her very winsome, and I found her videos helpful because she also had a very modest income. She actually has a bigger income, and at any of the points where I've noticed her mention her income, it's bigger than mine. So I'm definitely working my way out of debt on a small income, but I do find Budget Girl to be very helpful, and just kind of, I feel like she's in my boat with me. We're making things work with modest incomes. Another one is Debt Free Dana, and Debt Free Dana, she's a major follower of Dave Ramsey, and I'll talk about him a little bit in my own experience with him later, but she does a great job of helping people stay motivated to stay the course and to do what you know you need to do, but she makes it fun along the way. And she's in a very different life situation than me. She's got a husband and I think 4 or maybe 5 children, so a completely different budgeting situation, and they're in a 2-income household, so completely different, but really great videos, well made and pretty fun. The other ones that I have gotten into, I guess the only other one that I've watched very regularly is The Financial Diet, and I like The Financial Diet. I think that they do a great job making videos, but they're like in another league. Not just as far as their production value, but in another league as far as income and their videos. I mean, they're working, I think, in New York, and very, very oriented to urban lifestyle and work, and kind of what kind of financial strategies would you need in that seriously saturated urban market, whether it's a housing market, it's a jobs market. If you are just crammed into a place with that many people, which I'm so glad I'm not, they have great advice. And I mean, some of it is just across the board good financial advice and very fun videos. But I don't always relate to the advice they're giving, aside from just how important it is to get out of debt, which like, duh, I know. I'm working on it. Aside from the talk about how important it is to get out of debt, there's a lot of topics that are brought up on the financial diet that are just kind of just a few steps beyond me at this point anyway. So I enjoy them, but a lot of it goes in one ear and out the other, even though I'm enjoying it. So yeah, taking all of that as it is, those are some of the YouTube channels that I've enjoyed. There are so many YouTubers that talk about finances and have different strategies and are very motivating to listen to. But definitely I've noticed that everybody has a unique situation, and it's a little bit cliche, but it's the truth. So I watch them, I appreciate what they're doing. Sometimes they're very funny, sometimes they're very winsome, but they're not like my situation. And so you kind of take what you can use or get motivated by what is going to work for you where you're at. And the rest, you just kind of let it wash on by. And there might come a time where that information is more useful to you, but there is no cookie cutter financial advice because everybody's so different. I mean, yeah, my situation is so different right now than it was even a year ago or 2 years ago. What I was doing then wouldn't work for me now. So yeah, you just grow, you change, your life is going on. One of the very first, I guess, books about personal finance that had a big impact on me was Tim Ferriss's The 4-Hour Workweek. And I came across it, I think it might have been maybe like 2012, 2013. And I was in the middle of, at that time, what I thought would be my lifetime career. And I was very unhappy. It wasn't going well. I wasn't suited to that work, and I was doing everything I could to try and make it work. And the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting different results. So it took me a while to realize that the best thing to do would be to just pivot and change course. But I was trying awfully hard. But in the meantime, I was in this career, and I thought, oh gosh, like a 4-hour work week, like you could do anything for 4 hours, like. And so it was a book that appealed because it was the thought of doing what I was doing so much less. Like if I could get out of that, if I think the book helped me imagine something else. So I really appreciated that book. There were many things about it that were helpful. Like, I think he calls it a low information diet, but to just kind of start letting go of and ignore all kinds of things going on around you that are just noise and that you can't actually do anything about and that probably don't actually affect you. But to kind of just let that fall by the wayside. And I would admit that in that career, I was always reading the news and I was always reading what everybody thought about it. And I thought that that mattered. And it would stress me out because I worked with a lot of people and I thought they wanted me to be up to date on those things and to have an opinion and to share my opinion. And it's probably the last thing that they wanted. And as I let go of being so caught up in the noise of media and entertainment, that was helpful to my career, even though I never got down to any kind of 4-hour work week. But he talks a lot about different ways to make your life more efficient and simplify things that don't really matter as much. And he gives a lot of, one of the best things to do is to build passive streams of income. And I can understand that. I do not at the moment have the motivation to build that. I realize I could be missing opportunities, but I have not wanted to do the front loading work that it would take to build that, to build the skills to do that. I have not wanted to do that. I have actually chosen, by my simplified lifestyle and moving to Idaho and working for wages, I have chosen for now, like a form of using my time that would probably make him throw up a little in his mouth. I get that. I really get that. But I don't want to do that right now. I don't want to do that right now. And so it was a good book. It helped me to imagine a different sort of life, but I haven't necessarily followed it or done his steps in any intentional way. The next financial resource that I came across in my life was actually Dave Ramsey. And I was introduced to Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace University by my sister. And she saw me always stressed out and struggling in that first career. She saw me aware of my student loan debt, but not really dealing with it. You know, I think she knew that I was in some kind of income-based repayment plan. I think she understood that I was only making minimum payments. But she and her husband had used Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace University, and they were getting themselves out of debt from her student loans and a few vehicles. And at the time they were renting, but then they bought a house and now are working on paying off their mortgage. Anyway, they have followed Dave Ramsey's process probably just about to a T, and she really recommended it to me. So she lent me the CDs to listen to. So I didn't have like a workbook or any kind of extra parts of the curriculum, if there are any, but I listened to these 3 CDs and I got it, but I didn't get it to the point of taking action. So there's an argument that I didn't really get it, of course. I remember wanting to get started, and his concept of gazelle intense, where you go get like second and third jobs and you know, are just doing everything possible to pay down debt. I knew at the time I didn't have any kind of energy margin to throw at that. And so I just kind of thought, well, I can't do that. I can't go gazelle intense. So I didn't even go looking for kind of what's 1 or 2 notches back from gazelle intense. I wasn't looking for the next best thing. I just thought, well, I can't do that, so I'm not gonna do this at all yet. I mostly sat on the new knowledge that I had, and I felt ashamed. And I think that his delivery style, sometimes people have a similar response to, as I had, where I was really ashamed. I was ashamed of my debt, and I was ashamed of how I didn't really know what to do, and I didn't feel like I could take any action at that moment. And so it's weird because later came the breakthrough where I was able to start taking action. And now when I listen to Dave Ramsey, I find him very inspiring and honest and motivating. But I remember what it felt like to listen to him when I didn't have the energy yet, or I wasn't really ready. And it's like listening, it's like 2 completely different experiences. And so if you have debt or other financial struggles and you kind of recoil in a way at listening to Dave Ramsey, I really get that. And so I hope that you come to the point where you are able to start taking whatever action is your first step. Whatever action is your first step. And then over time, you will find the good things in what he says, and you will find him to probably be a more, I guess, palatable voice in the world of advice around finances. But I know that my first experiences of him were both a revelation and just a little too much. I wasn't really ready to examine my own part in my debt yet. So anyway, now I really like Dave Ramsey, and I think he's right about a lot of stuff. The third financial resource that I have really enjoyed, and I mentioned this several, I don't know, 2 months ago, maybe more. And at that time, I thought I was going to be talking about all these resources that I liked. And I made a very short video. I only mentioned one and then I stopped. Made a just short video that day. And that resource was the blog of Mr. Money Mustache. And I guess his real name is Pete. But it's funny to me to know that not too long after I was acquainted with Dave Ramsey, some other friends of mine that I'd gone to grad school with shared a link to Mr. Money Mustache's blog on Facebook, and I opened that up. And it's funny because I opened it up and it was a link to an article that was almost step by step a description of all the same things that Dave Ramsey would say. And he wasn't plagiarizing. He wasn't taking Dave Ramsey's work, and many people have compared them. But he was just outlining, this is why getting out of debt is important, and then you can do this, and then you can do this, and then you can do this. And I thought, that sounds exactly like the baby steps, except that he was swearing, and it was funny, and he wasn't preachy, which Dave Ramsey can come across as a little bit on the preachy side. But this was like Dave Ramsey and a face punch. And somehow it worked. And actually somehow it worked. And that it was when I was reading Mr. Money Mustache that I got to the point and I did realize now is the only time to do this. You know, if I didn't get started getting out of debt the minute I had it, now is the next best time to start getting out of debt. I got to do it. So I'm always going to be grateful to both of those, but it's kind of funny that the first time I came across Mr. Money Mustache, he sounded exactly like Dave Ramsey, but he sounded so different than Dave Ramsey that it kind of broke through probably all of my prejudices about Dave. So Pete's blog is full of articles that kind of go all over the place, but it's both kind of very practical advice and then also a lot of, I wouldn't want to say philosophy, but it's about getting a perspective. It's about getting a perspective on what you want from your life and what matters to you, and that is really why and what you need to know to stay motivated to accomplish whatever your goals are, whether it's just getting out of debt or if it's building a giant fortune or whatever. And he's really good at, I think, kind of punching through the illusions of what might make you happy or what you've been taught to think will make you happy, which is mostly all of the lies of advertising and consumerism. And he brings up like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Like, if you have security and companionship, if your basic needs are met, you can be very, very happy. And don't forget that, and don't get kind of fooled into sort of a treadmill of consuming the next new thing and spending your money on it, for one thing, especially. Don't get tricked. Don't get tricked into losing your happiness, because your happiness is really yours, and it's something that you have a lot of control over as long as you don't give that control away. So yeah, I highly recommend Mr. Money Mustache. And then the most recent resource that I've come across was through that blog. I think Pete had a guest post, maybe several, but there was definitely at least one link to another financial blog, and this one is called Early Retirement Extreme, and the writer of this one is a guy named Jacob, and I followed that link and just devoured that blog. I love to read. Nerd alert. Devoured that blog and found out that he had self-published a book, and I actually, in a total moment of non-frugality, I bought the book, but I love it. I have it right here. And again, it is not just a lot of practical advice, and this one has a ton of practical advice. I mean, I think it has a couple sections on like building your own tools. Yeah, just crazy practical. And then again, it's that philosophical perspective of what really matters to you and what kind of life do you want to build. And and that like for Jacob, I don't want to speak for him, but the impression that I get, the freedom of early retirement and the freedom of financial independence is what matters the most. And that can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. But what I really like about his, I'm not sure I can even describe it, because I guess his perspective resonates with a lot of unorthodox thinkers that I have read and really appreciated in topics everywhere from anthropology to religion to history to economics. That to have a very good, full human life, we're really not meant to be selling our lives for wages so that we can buy things that will wear out and that don't actually satisfy our needs. And I wish that we didn't live in an economy that was turning the biomass of the world into electronic currency that isn't even real, and creating all sorts of waste in the meantime. Nowhere in ecology is there waste. There's just not. But our economy has waste all over the place, and so it's, yeah, this is where I could really get lost in the weeds. But I really appreciate this book because he has such an unorthodox approach as to how you might use the market to subvert it. You know, to become financially independent so that you no longer have to play along with this destructive game. And that's definitely my description of it. He doesn't have that phrase anywhere. But I just have found it almost moving to see that there's this path forward where you can find your freedom, you can live a good life, and you can get out of that cycle of destroying the world for the sake of money. Yeah, that's not anything that I want. So yeah, this video has gone many places. But yeah, these are just a few more of the resources that I find inspiring and helpful. So I'll put a link, or at least the full name spelled correctly, of all these things down in the description. And I will be posting this Thursday morning, and I will see you in a week. Thank you so much.